The film begins with a police officer named In-ho who is trying to catch a group of drug dealers. Sadly, during the investigation, one of his teammates is killed by the drug dealers. Nearby, In-ho spots a young man running away and tries to catch him but fails. 5 years later, a young police officer named Min-jae arrests a drug dealer. Before taking the dealer to the station, his boss beats up the dealer. Later, in court, Min-jae is called as a witness. Surprisingly, Min-jae tells the judge that his boss broke the police rules by beating up the dealer. According to the rules, arrests should be made without any violence. Because of his testimony, his boss becomes very angry and accuses Min-jae of being too strict and following the rules too closely. Sometime later, In-ho called Min-jae to his office. Now, In-ho is the head of the Provos, a group that oversees other police officers. Impressed by Min-jae's bravery, In-ho gave him a new mission to investigate a senior officer named Kang-yoon. Rumor has it that a secret organization is using Kang-yoon to catch drug dealers. This means the police might be working for this secret group, which breaks police rules. Plus, Kang-yoon is suspected to be behind the murder of In-ho's colleague from the beginning of the film. When Min-jae heard this, he felt he was too young for such a big job. But then, Min-jae remembered his late father, who was also a police officer. His father was killed while solving a crime. In the end, Min-jae accepted the mission to make his late father proud. The next day, In-ho met with Min-jae again to talk more about his suspicions regarding Kang-yoon. First, Kang-yoon is obsessed with catching the most dangerous drug lord in South Korea, named Young-bin. Even though Kang-yoon has arrested Young-bin many times, the drug lord always manages to get away and continues selling drugs. Second, Kang-yoon has secretly teamed up with another mafia boss named Dong Cheol. Dong Cheol is very powerful in Seoul and runs many illegal businesses. Rumor has it that Dong Cheol supports Kang-yoon so he can catch Young-bin, who is Dong Cheol's rival. If Young-bin is out of the way, Dong Cheol's business will thrive and Kang-yoon will be seen as a hero. Meanwhile, Kang-yoon, who is In-ho's target, is the head of investigations. He often does whatever he wants and hates following police rules. He even humiliates officials who commit crimes. Because of this, many police officers dislike Kang-yoon and blame him whenever a police officer dies. At that time, In-ho also suspects Kang-yoon is the one who killed his colleague. Even if Kang-yoon confessed, many still wouldn't trust him. Long story short, Min-jae was officially transferred to the investigation division to spy on Kang-yoon. Luckily, none of Kang-yoon's team was suspicious of Min-jae. But, according to Korean police tradition, they played pranks on Min-jae on his first day of work. During this, Kang-yoon entered the room, scaring everyone. At that time, he stopped his team from pranking Min-jae, making him feel more comfortable. After that, Kang-yoon took Min-jae on an investigation. On the way, he explained to Min-jae how things work in the investigation division. Basically, he said he can do anything to catch a criminal, even if it means breaking the rules. Hearing this, Min-jae started to believe everything In-ho said about Kang-yoon being a corrupt police officer. When they arrived at their destination, Kang-yoon told Min-jae to watch how things worked and not to interfere. Soon after, Kang-yoon met with a drug dealer who had connections to Young-bin. But Min-jae, who follows police rules strictly, didn't listen to Kang-yoon. He interrupted the meeting and arrested the dealer. Seeing this, Kang-yoon told Min-jae to leave. After getting information about Young-bin from the dealer, Kang-yoon met Min-jae outside and explained again how things work. Kang-yoon said that instead of arresting small-time dealers, it's better to use them as informants to catch bigger criminals. Upon hearing that, Min-jae didn't say anything but clearly didn't agree. Meanwhile, the other members of the investigation division were preparing a small party to welcome Min-jae. When he arrived, they asked what he did with Kang-yoon, because Kang-yoon never took them to meet informants. This showed that Min-jae had gained Kang-yoon's trust. After hearing Min-jae's full explanation, the other officers told him to keep the informant's identity a secret. Min-jae began to understand that the investigation division didn't follow the police rules. When Min-jae got home from work, he quickly made a report for In-ho. In the report, Min-jae described in detail everything Kang-yoon did. He included photos and recordings as evidence. He even secretly put a GPS tracker in Kang-yoon's car to collect more evidence. The next day, Min-jae discussed the evidence with In-ho, matching In-ho's suspicions. But they still didn't have enough evidence to arrest Kang Yoon. Soon after, Kang Yoon asked Min Jae to come to his house. At that time, Min Jae was surprised by Kang Yoon's expensive items, since a policeman's salary isn't that high. Then, Kang Yoon asked Min Jae to help with an investigation. While there, Min Jae secretly looked for information and evidence. He found a private room that seemed suspicious and took photos of everything to report back to In-ho. While driving, Kang Yoon explained that someone as big as Young Bin, a drug lord, couldn't be easily caught because he always found ways to avoid the police. They needed to blend in with the wealthy lifestyle of Young Bin. So, Kang Yoon told Min Jae to dress nicely, and they drove a Mercedes-Benz that Kang Yoon bought at a 70% discount. Soon, they arrived at a place to meet an informant. As time passed, In-ho and Min Jae started gathering new evidence that Min Jae found. This included the mysterious money used to buy the luxury car, a suspicious safe, and Kang Yoon's plan to clear his name from the death of In-ho's colleague. While writing his report, Min Jae was alarmed by his tracking device, which showed that Kang Yoon was on the move. Without wasting time, Min Jae followed him and saw Kang Yoon meeting with an investor, asking for a large sum of money. Suspicious, Min Jae asked a restaurant waiter to help place a listening device on Kang Yoon's table. After succeeding, it was revealed that Kang Yoon really needed financial help to catch Young Bin because he had to pay informants. If the mafia was not stopped, South Korea could become overrun with drugs. But while he was still listening in, Kang Yoon suddenly found the listening device. A week later, Min Jae and Kang Yoon went to a casino where Young Bin often spent his holidays. At that time, they went alone without any backup, so they planned to just watch Young Bin instead of arresting him right away. There, Kang Yoon gave Min Jae a task that he would meet with Young Bin, while Min Jae would look for the killer of In-ho's colleague, who had a distinctive ear wound. While looking around, Min Jae accidentally bumped into a waiter who matched the description of the killer, so he arrested him. After catching the suspect, Min Jae reported his findings to In-ho. In-ho then revealed that the person funding Kang Yoon's investigation was the head of the intelligence unit. Turns out, the person who killed In-ho's colleague has been caught. This means that the rumors about Kang Yoon weren't true. Min Jae also realized that it was unlikely for police officers to kill each other in Korea. However, because In-ho disliked Kang Yoon so much, he still asked Min Jae to keep investigating him to find any other wrongdoings. On Sunday, Kang Yoon invited Min Jae to join him in betting on a jet ski race. At that time, they picked the right numbers and won a lot of money. Then, Kang Yoon used the money to pay off his debt to the mafia who had been funding him. Shortly after, Kang Yoon invited Min Jae to go fishing in the sea. While fishing, Kang Yoon told Min Jae that he knew Min Jae's late father very well. 20 years ago, Min Jae's father was Kang Yoon's boss and mentor. In fact, Kang Yoon was the one who found Min Jae's father in his final moments. After a month of watching Kang Yoon, Min Jae found no evidence that he was a bad police officer. Kang Yoon only broke rules to make investigations easier, not for corruption. In fact, his methods were quite effective in catching criminals. One day at lunchtime, Kang Yoon asked Min Jae to drive him home to get an important file. But when Kang Yoon returned to the car, In-ho and his men arrived to arrest him. At that time, Min Jae was shocked because he had already reported that Kang Yoon was innocent. However, In-ho was blinded by his hatred and couldn't think straight. Then, In-ho ordered his team to open Kang Yoon's secret safe. Inside, they found only a police contract and an examination certificate. Still, In-ho, not wanting to be embarrassed, ordered his men to take Kang Yoon to the provost's office. When they got there, In-ho started interrogating Kang Yoon using the evidence Min Jae had collected. There, In-ho asked why Kang Yoon received money from outside the police to carry out investigations. Calmly, Kang Yoon explained that this is what made him different from other police officers. While he finds his own funds to uncover crimes, other police only rely on the small amount of money provided by the police department. At that moment, Kang Yoon said he didn't care what people thought, as long as he could catch the criminals. This made In-ho very angry, but Kang Yoon was not scared and even challenged him to arrest Young Bin. There, Kang Yoon would use his own methods, while In-ho had to follow the police rules. Feeling unable to accept the challenge, In-ho let Kang Yoon go because there was no strong evidence against him. Meanwhile, members of the investigation division called Min Jae to a food stall. They had found out that he was spying on their division. They beat him up, and soon after, Kang Yoon arrived. One of the members immediately told him that Min Jae was a spy. Calmly, he asked to talk alone with Min Jae. During their conversation, Kang Yoon explained that his way of doing things would always clash with police rules. He believed that the bureaucracy only made it harder for the police to catch criminals. Then, he gave Min Jae a choice to be an honest policeman with more criminals on the streets, or be like him and do whatever it takes to stop crime. After hearing Kang Yoon's words, Min Jae began to trust him. Min Jae even helped in the plan to catch Young Bin. Before arresting Young Bin, they started by arresting people connected to him, including a man named Young. There, Kang Yoon threatened to hurt Young if he didn't give them information. Seeing this, Min Jae felt that Kang Yoon was going too far, which made Kang Yoon very angry. Scared, Young finally gave in and revealed that Young Bin was preparing a new type of drug that looked like coffee and planned to sell it all over Korea. Hearing this, Kang Yoon gave Young two choices, which to help the police or go to prison for 5 years. If Young helped, Kang Yoon would pay him $2 million. Young quickly agreed to help the police. The next day, Kang Yoon reported the latest plans to arrest Young Bin to his boss. He did this to get more funds to pay Young. Unfortunately, Kang Yoon's boss suddenly closed the Young Bin case, saying it wasn't important for the police. Instead, he told Kang Yoon to handle another case that would make the police rich. With no other options, Kang Yoon invited Min Jae to meet Dong Cheol, who had funded him before. There, Kang Yoon asked Min Jae to keep this a secret. However, Min Jae protested Kang Yoon's actions again, but Kang Yoon explained that if they didn't arrest Young Bin soon, South Korean youth would suffer from the bad effects of drugs. There, Kang Yoon also shared a message from Min Jae's father that he still remembered. The message was that the police must catch criminals, even if it means not following all the rules. After that, Kang Yoon met Dong Cheol near the pier and asked to borrow money. Without hesitation, Dong Cheol gave him a bag filled with money. At that time, Dong Cheol was very happy to help get rid of Young Bin. The next day, Kang Yoon decided to catch Young Bin without a special permission slip from the crime team. There, he told Min Jae to give the money to Young, while the rest of the crime team would take care of the remaining money. According to Kang Yoon's plan, Young would then give the money to Young Bin, making Young Bin think Young was there to invest in his business. Meanwhile, Kang Yoon and his team watched from outside the building where Young Bin was. They planned to surprise him and catch him at the right moment. Over at Young Bin's factory, they were almost done making a drug that looked just like coffee. There, Young Bin bragged that the police couldn't catch him because the drug looked so much like regular coffee. But then, Young signaled to Kang Yoon and his team to go ahead and raid the place. Soon after, they rushed in, but Young Bin wasn't scared and demanded to see a permission slip to arrest him. However, Kang Yoon wasn't the type to wait for paperwork in situations like this. Just as Kang Yoon was about to use Young Bin's coffee machine, Young Bin quickly swallowed a key needed to start the machine. At that moment, Kang Yoon made Young Bin spit out the key. After that, Kang Yoon started up the machine, tasted the coffee, and confirmed it really was a drug. On the other hand, Min Jae was chasing Young Bin, who tried to escape. Just as he was about to handcuff him, a gangster attacked him. After a long fight, Min Jae managed to knock the gangster down. But since Min Jae wasn't very experienced, he let his guard down, and the gangster stabbed him in the back. Hurt and unable to fight back, he blew a whistle to call for help. Upon hearing that, Kang Yoon quickly came to his rescue. Later, they finally managed to arrest Young Bin. The next morning, Kang Yoon met with Min Jae again and shared what he had heard and seen from rumors. Essentially, Kang Yoon had tricked everyone about the real killer of In-ho's colleague from the start of the story so he could keep working as a cop and catch Young Bin. Later, Kang Yoon had to hide Min Jae in the trunk of his car. Then, he went to meet Dong Cheol at a pier to settle his debts. At that time, Kang Yoon didn't have any money, but he promised to do anything to clear his debt. Dong Cheol then asked him to deliver drugs and money to a ship in the sea. With no other options, he had to follow Dong Cheol's orders. After taking Min Jae out of the trunk, Kang Yoon asked him for one last favor, to make sure the speedboat worked so they could get home safely. When they reached the ship, Kang Yoon handed over the drugs and money to the European mafia. Unable to just watch, Min Jae decided to take action. He stormed onto the ship and caused a commotion. However, they were outnumbered, and Kang Yoon got shot while Min Jae was trapped. Just when things looked really bad, the police arrived to rescue them. It turned out that Kang Yoon had planned everything carefully. After arresting Young Bin, Kang Yoon had given money to the Central Police and asked them to come to his location. Even though Kang Yoon managed to arrest 2 mafia members, Young Bin and Dong Cheol, In-ho still disliked him and blamed him for a murder he didn't commit. But Kang Yoon felt he had finished what he set out to do and accepted his punishment happily. As everything unfolded, Min Jae started to understand why Kang Yoon disliked the police bureaucracy. Over time, Min Jae worked hard to try to shorten his boss's prison sentence or even get him released. In the end, Min Jae succeeded in getting Kang Yoon out of prison and clearing his name. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is sometimes you gotta bend the rules like a gymnast to catch the bad guys. But never forget to do a good deed like paying off a debt to a mafia with a jet ski race win.